Today, Harris rallies with her VP pick, Tim Walz.
Hamas names October 7th mastermind Sinwar as its new leader, and music labels create a new copyright puzzle for US courts with AI lawsuits.
It's Wednesday, August 7th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes every weekday. I'm Jonah Green in New York.
And I'm David Spencer in London.
And to his former high school football players, he was coach.
Vice President Kamala Harris introducing Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate.
The nation will know Coach Walz by another name, Vice President of the United States.
In front of a raucous crowd at Temple University in Philadelphia, Walz described his upbringing in a small Nebraska town, his 24 years serving in the National Guard, and his prior career as a high school social studies teacher and football coach.
Those are the same values I learned on the family farm and tried to instill in my students. I took it to Congress and to the state capitol, and now Vice President Harris and I are running to take those very values to the White House.
At this first rally together, the two also went after their Republican rivals.
And make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed.
Donald Trump was quick to criticize Walz in return, writing on his social media platform, "This is the most radical left duo in American history."
In just a few short weeks, this lesser-known Midwestern governor essentially went viral and generated huge enthusiasm with how he was going after Trump, but also for his folksy, affable demeanor. And now he's got a pretty good shot at becoming the next vice president. So, who is he and why did Harris pick him? For that, I turned to Jeff Mason, who covers the White House.
Well, she definitely had a difficult choice, and she had, in particular, two candidates at the end between Walz and Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania, who both would have brought a lot to her ticket. But she selected Walz in part because she saw him as someone with whom she'd want to govern and was impressed with his resume, both in Congress and as a governor, and with his plain-speaking appeal to white people and white men in particular, rural voters in Minnesota and elsewhere in some other swing states who have been gravitating to the Republican ticket and who have been gravitating to Donald Trump. So that is something that he brings her, and finding some phrases and words that just really took off on the campaign trail this year.
I assume you're talking about the word weird.
These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
Weird. Yes. I mean, it seems like such a simple thing to say, and yet his use of the word weird to describe former President Trump and his now running mate, J.D. Vance, just really took off. And in such a way that you then started hearing Vice President Harris use it on the campaign trail.
And it looks like, at least immediately, that the pick hasn't offended anybody on the Democratic side. You know, he got praise from Joe Manchin and AOC.
Well, one of the criteria, I guess, that you could say when choosing a vice president is do no harm. And that, no doubt, was something that they took into consideration with Tim Walz. There was some concern that if Shapiro had ended up on the ticket, that the issue of Gaza would return as a major issue in this election. And Walz has not been super vocal on this issue.
I saw somebody else say that this pick reflects that the Harris campaign was prioritizing enthusiasm and exciting the base rather than some political calculation of trying to get votes in a key state like, Pennsylvania. What do you think of that?
It's a political calculation either way.
Yeah.
Certainly, Shapiro's potential ability to deliver Pennsylvania was a major factor in his favor. But there's also a question of whether a vice presidential candidate can deliver anything.
A court in Thailand has ordered the dissolution of the Popular Progressive Opposition Party over its controversial promise to amend a law protecting Thailand's monarchy from criticism. Move Forward won the most votes in the 2023 election, but was then blocked from taking power. 11 Move Forward leaders are banned from politics for 10 years. The surviving lawmakers are expected to band together and form a new party. Bangladesh's president has appointed Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus to lead an interim government, in doing so meeting a key demand of student protesters. On Monday, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fled the country and remains in a safe house outside Delhi in India.
Hamas has named its Gaza leader Yahya Sinwar as a successor to former political chief Ismail Haniyeh. Haniyeh was assassinated in Tehran last week. Sinwar is the architect of the October 7th attack and has been hiding in Gaza, defying Israeli attempts to kill him since the start of the war.
Tropical storm Debbie has soaked coastal Georgia and South Carolina, and Savannah, Charleston, and other cities in the southeast are bracing for catastrophic flooding. At least 6 people have died in Florida and Georgia.
The social media platform X has sued a global advertising alliance and several major companies, accusing them of unlawfully conspiring to boycott the site and causing it to lose revenue. The lawsuit arguing they violated U.S. antitrust law. Some advertisers have been concerned their brands would appear next to harmful content that the site's prior owners might have removed.
After a turbulent opening to the week, investors are looking for some calm across the markets. Watching this from London for us is Amanda Cooper.
It definitely feels like there's been a bit of a reality check coming through. A lot of people were saying on Monday that those big moves were exaggerated, that the sell-off was just a bit too much given the triggers that made it happen. And certainly over the course of yesterday and today, trading's still jittery. We're still seeing things like US stock futures bounce up and down a little bit, but there's definitely a sense of calm and normality returning to the market. We've got a bit more focus on earnings, for example. This morning in Europe, we've had Novo Nordisk, the most valuable company in the region, report earnings. They've sort of missed on a couple of marks and their shares are down, but the stock 600 up quite comfortably on the day. And we're seeing that same kind of sense of calm in US stock futures, pointing to, I don't know if a steadier open, but certainly a modestly positive one.
3 industry music giants have opened a new legal battle over the use of generative AI. Sony, Universal, and Warner are targeting startups Suno and Udio, claiming they've misused hundreds of copyrighted songs to train their AI systems. Those systems then create musical tracks based on users' prompts. Blake Britton is our legal reporter looking at this.
So all of these lawsuits allege that these AI companies are using copyrighted works without permission to train their systems to kind of generate their own work. The largest record labels in the world have sued Suno and Udio for allegedly using their music to train their systems without permission. But the billion-dollar question here, I think, is whether the actual use of this copyrighted material to train these systems is itself an act of copyright infringement.
What could we learn from these cases? What is key here?
All these companies keep their training data secret, so we don't know 100% for sure what materials have been used to train these systems. The record labels have said, Suno and Udio in particular, they've gotten it to kind of recreate elements of sound recordings that they own, and these systems have created music with sound-alikes of people like Bruce Springsteen and ABBA. So one of the things we could learn if this goes through discovery is what is actually being used to train these systems. But the big kind of legal question here as well is, even if these materials are being used, if that's fair use. And if it is, basically these AI companies can do what they want with it if it kind of creates a transformative material. And that's the big question, I think, as to how these lawsuits are going to go.
That's almost it for today, but let me point you first to our recommended read, which is about the chronic shortage of affordable housing in Portugal. It's left some migrants who've headed to Portugal for a better life living in tents. You can find a link to it in today's pod description. And for more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. To never miss an episode, subscribe on your favorite podcast player. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.